Welcome to the 22nd episode of our Guitar Hang. Nick Granville in Wellington, myself in Auckland. And we've got some stories for you today. Nick, you want to go first? You've got something that looks quite nice.
Oh, this is a dirty old Squire Strat I've had for ages. It's nothing special.
Oh, yeah?
I bought this a couple of years ago. Or last year might have been. Just as a knock-around guitar. It's actually one of the Indonesian-made ones that's kind of thinner. So it weighs nothing.
Sweet.
It's not even 6 pounds, 6.5 maybe.
All right. That's super light.
Sounds good though.
Yeah.
Like it does the does the Strat thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just a knock-around guitar, so it's kind of fun to have around
And
here.
you've never obviously changed the pickups or anything like that, right? It's bone
No,
stock.
they're just the standard ones. Yeah. This pickup here doesn't even fit under the string. So that like the pickup, I was talking to Glenn about it today, that the E string is sort of off with where the pickup is. So you can hear the E string's not as loud as the others, but it kind of takes the ice pick off it a little bit, so it's kind of nice in some ways.
Yeah.
But it's just a cheap guitar. It's just a knock around. I'm actually thinking about having a go at refretting it and just going to do it myself.
Yeah.
Because I figure, well, if I wreck it, who cares? It's just a crappy guitar anyway. So I'm gonna have a go at it. I reckon. I mean, worst comes to worst, it's bad, and I just get someone to redo it.
No, so you do the refret yourself, and then you send it for a fretstone to the pros.
Yeah, exactly. I reckon I can do it. I don't think. I mean, I've done a fret level before, and I've done a fret polishing and all that sort of stuff. So I reckon getting the frets in there. I've watched enough videos on how to do it, and I've got all the tools. So I'm like, I might as well have a go at it. Costs $20 for some fret wire, and just it's the worst that could happen.
You know, the first mod I'd ever do on a cheap Strat would just be to get a new bone nut. That makes all the difference to the playability as well. You know, and
I need to do that as well. Yeah. Well, I remember Rory McCartney telling me in Wellington that his first refret ever was on Joel Shadbolt's Strat, the one that he uses with LAB,
the green one.
And he said he probably did a terrible job of it. You know what I mean? It's still on the same set of frets, but that was his first. I think he said it was his first refret, so that's kind of something. Yeah. So what have you been up to, man? What's been happening?
I have some.
You got a new pickup set.
Some new goodies. Right, so basically this is the third of 3 Eric Johnson Strats that I have lying here, and it was the least molested of the lot. So so in go a set of EMG DG20 pickups. I don't know why though, because I guess it's because when I got into Pink Floyd, it was through the Pulse album, and I loved the guitar sounds on that, and those were the EMGs. And
Delicate Sound of Thunder too, right?
Yeah, though, to be honest, I got into Pink Floyd with Pulse, and then I had to go back and, listen to all the older stuff. But that Division Bell / Pulse era was also me, getting out of school, and having heaps of time to play guitar. So it was quite a, I can still remember those days very clearly. So anyway, I saw this set, and the guy had a decent price going. They normally retail for $329 US, and I got it for a fair bit less than that, including shipping to New Zealand. And thankfully, we don't really have any GST on anything of that value. So they got you pretty quickly, and I think it was the Father's Day weekend, and I popped them in, and my first impression was shit, this is very different to what I'm normally used to, with the pickups being vintage, 60s or something like that. And, the noise, there was no hum, but there was hiss with distortion, which I'm still kind of shit, I don't like that bit about it. But it has heaps of character, I found, and especially on a clean sound, it's like having a boost pedal on already. And
they're basically their own sound, aren't they? Yeah. People think of them as being a single coil or a humbucker or whatever, and I think of EMGs as being their own thing. Are they the solderless ones that have got the little
they've got
clips?
The little the Molex connectors that push in. There was zero soldering.
Do they feel solid enough? Do they feel like they're going to come off, or do they?
No,
are they?
Not really. I mean, I would have put a dab of silicone glue if I felt that they were a bit, on the loose side. The install, it was actually more pain to take out the pick guard because I had to cut 2 wires And this one, you just put in that stereo jack, thread the wires through, clip it in, shove in a battery, underneath over here, and put that battery connector in, and you're good to go. I didn't even they said, okay, test it out. And I was like, it seems pretty straightforward. And I put the strings on and boom, it worked first try.
Yeah.
The only thing is
Well, if it's a pre-made pick guard, right? You
yeah,
don't have to,
exactly.
you
You
should,
just
in
drop
theory,
in
should be
and then, push those connectors in. I went with a lithium battery just because I hate changing batteries, so,
Yeah.
I'm
So where did you mount did you mount it under
the battery is underneath this area over here. It just fits
and how
in
did
exactly.
but how did you get it from moving around?
It doesn't.
Did you Velcro it in?
No. Once you push the pick guard in, the battery is
So the pick guards, the electronics and stuff are pushing
yeah.
down
I
on
put a
the
bit of
battery.
sponge behind it just to create some insulation. But apart from that, there's no mounting, and it seems pretty solid because if you shake it, you can hear if something's loose. It'll rattle
So
away.
when you're doing your stage dives, your battery won't move around.
Nah. And
Oh, that's cool.
I don't think I'm going to be flying with this guitar though, because something about having that lithium battery in there makes me a bit nervous. So, to be honest, also, it wouldn't be the one guitar I'd take to a gig. It's more like a recording thing that I think is useful to have lying around, because there's it's almost like it's already EQ'd and processed. That's
yeah, it's like a hi-fi sound, isn't it? That's how I kind of think of it.
It sounds horrible with bloody digital modeling for some reason. I tried it with the Katana at my dad's house. No, it didn't like it. And same
Really?
with the HX. The moment I put it into the tube amp, not even with the pedal, straight into the amp, it was happy. And in fact, I had it through the Bella into that 2x10 Marshall cab. Was some of the nicest, spankiest, clean sounds I've gotten.
Yeah. They're really
clean,
good.
without a hint of distortion or anything like that. Super clean.
Which actually is a really, really popular sound now. If you that Dua Lipa stuff, for example, her guitar player has a sound that's there's no hair on it at all. It's bone dry clean, and that seems to be a real popular thing because it's it's especially for pop funk, which seems to be a big thing right now. Bone dry, and EMGs will get there. A good buddy of mine, Lance Sewer, who you probably don't know, but Lance used to be the guitar player in town in Wellington. He was the guy who kind of got me started, got me my first theatre show, session, stuff like that. Great guitar player, killer guitar player. You'll have heard him on records for sure. But he used to have a Tokai Strat, one of those 90s ones, I think it was, with a set of EMGs, so the humbucker and the two singles. And through a Mesa Boogie tri-axis, and it always sounded really good.
Sure.
And he just got it to, it was crispy sounding, you know what I mean? But no noise or whatever,
Yeah.
And it's funny that EMGs kind of fell out of fashion, didn't they, for a while?
They
I don't
did,
know why.
I guess. I think when the whole, grunge thing happened, there was a return to basics over the board guitar-wise. The racks got ditched and the pedals came back, and people started hunting for old Marshalls and old Fender amps again, that sort of thing, rather than having your preamp.
But it goes in
and power
cycles,
amp.
though, doesn't it? Because it goes in cycles, doesn't it?
It does,
Cats like Leon Todd are wanting to buy all that rack gear again, and next thing you know, Leon will be wanting to buy some EMGs.
He's already got a video. In fact, I spoke to him. He's got a Strat with the EMGs in it. And when I was researching the DG20s, his video was one of the first ones I actually came across. So
cool.
Leon Torres beat me to the post in the EMG department.
He's good like that. Hey, have you measured the pickups? Do you know what the DC roughly is coming out at about?
It won't be a valid point, because those I think they're very low actual DC resistance, and then they hit the preamp, which bumps them up to normal pickup level. So it's not really a comparative point. I did notice though that when you raise the height and stuff, it kind of reacts like a normal pickup. It gets a bit brighter and louder. So I kind of had a bit of a juggling act. In fact, what I read is Gilmour had one of his Strats routed so he could drop the pickups really low. There is a minimum height it goes to, and if I crank it anymore, what happens is the pick guard starts bulging. So either I
Yeah.
need to, chop those screws or drill further where those screws go into the whatever. So, I would actually like the neck pickup a little bit lower than where I have it right now, just in comparison with the bridge pickup. Because normally
Yeah.
on most of my strats, like visually, the neck is like, especially this side, is almost flush with the pickguard. Maybe there'll be a mill at the most where it, goes past that. But
Totally.
I
That's
like my
exactly
neck
what I've
pickup
done.
super low, yeah.
Same.
And
Always.
on the bridge on the other side, I'll crank up that bass side just so you get the, the beefiness. Otherwise, every time it's like you go to the bridge pickup, it's like, oh shit, what happened?
I don't know if you can see that, but you should be able to see the
Yeah.
neck pickup sitting so low. Like that's, I do it with all my guitars. Put the neck pickup down and put the bridge pickup up.
Yeah.
To balance them a little better. And even then, I prefer to have the bridge pickup wound a bit hotter, if, for better balance.
Yeah. So, do you want to hear it?
Hell yeah.
Okay, so
Go on.
these are just some very basic. This is just like the clean channel of the amp. And it's instead
Which
of
amp?
tone controls, it's got that EXG or something, which is like a Scoopy kind of thing. It bumps up the lows and the highs. And then you've got the I think the SPC, which is the mid-range boost, around 600 hertz or so. This the Scoopy thing, I don't really like it that much because I think what they do is they bump the lows at like 45 hertz, which is like almost like sub bass.
Sub-bass,
So it
yeah.
makes it like really, woolly sounding if you're not careful. So maybe like the max I'd have it in is like 2 or 3, nothing more than that. But that mid boost is awesome. You can, juice it
Yeah.
up all the way if you wanted to. So
Which amp are you running into at the moment?
this is the custom audio. I just thought it'd be a good choice
Okay.
because you've got both, clean and dirty on the same amp. So this is like the Fender style clean. It's almost like acoustic-y in quality, So this is with the EXG now coming in. You'll get a bit of a low bump. And then when you crank it up further, it's almost like a very mid-scooped. So I don't really like that sound that much. So now we'll put that back to maybe like 1 or 2 and turn the mid boost up. So that instantly fattens it up. In fact, that should be like the default sound,
Yeah. But it's useful to have that under control because you've got options, right?
Totally. You can totally wind it back down. So now on the bridge single coil, we're going back to like 0 on everything. And here that mid boost really shines, when you crank it.
I'm just curious, when you play chords with that guitar,
Yeah.
do you use the mid boost down so you get a sparkly kind of clean? And then if you go to like a lead tone, you bring the mid range in to make it that fat mid range lead
No,
tone,
so
right?
here's the thing.
that what you do?
The volume control works pretty linearly, so you're not like you're losing top end like on a traditional Strat style thing.
Yeah.
So you just drop that maybe down a few notches, and even with that mid boost, it sounds pretty cool. It's around like 7 or 8 right now. So if I had that back all the way, a little bit of on the thin side on that bridge pickup. So you'd want it at least around 7 or so. In fact, I wish you could have separate settings for neck and
To preset it.
and yeah. I mean, the one thing I'm really missing is the tone control on the bridge pickup, which is like part and parcel of my playing, but I don't have it in this case. So I'm kind of, forced to drop that treble via other means.
It's kind of interesting because when you put that mid range in the bridge pickup,
Yeah.
it almost sounded like a humbucker because it was like
Yeah.
it was almost lower mids, which is where a humbucker. So you're getting you got the best of both, right? You can have single coil, but you can also fatten it up and get almost a humbuckery type
Have
thing out of it.
you ever played
It's cool.
the onboard Demeter mid boost?
No,
That does something very similar because there was a guitar made by Bill Asher that was in the studio I used to work in, and it was 3 Fralin single coils, but it had that Demeter mid boost, and that was a very versatile guitar, man. You could get it sounding, single coil P90 or humbuckerish, depending upon where you set that mid boost.
that's not the one that's in the Eric Clapton Strat, is it?
No, that's a slightly different one. That I think.
I have played that.
Yeah, That's in fact like a very extreme one. It like almost adds like 20 or 30 dB of
20 dB, of mid.
like
That's the only one I have played, and to be honest, I didn't particularly like. I found it too aggressive in the mids for me. Like it didn't. What seems interesting about what you're doing at the moment is you seem to have a lot of control over it.
Yeah, I mean it can be subtle if you want to, you know. So you've got,
of course, but
just maybe like 3 or 4, or you can have it like around 6, and then this is all the way up. It still retains its twanginess. You're not getting that, dark humbucker kind of, that sort of thing.
Well, they're active pickups, aren't they? I had years ago, I had a Music Man guitar, one of the 70s ones, that was one of the Leo Fender built ones. It was a Sabre 1. And it had 2 pickups that kind of looked like a humbucker, but they were weird shaped, and there was 2 of them. And then the controls on it was active controls, so it had volume, treble, bass. Controls. And man, it was so handy having treble and bass, because you go to the neck pickup, okay, I'm going to put more treble in, less bass. And then you go to the bridge pickup and you do the opposite, and you were able to balance between the 2.
Yeah.
And then unusually it had a phase switch on so you could flip the phase within each individual pickup. Phase, I think it was phase. Yes, you get that out of phase kind of honky tone. So I found that was just a super useful guitar. I wish I hadn't sold it. But that active EQ was something that's the only guitar I've ever had it on. But yeah, treble and bass. And so if you wanted more mid-range, then you could actually just cut both
and bump the volume up,
and bump the volume up, and you get the same effect, right?
There used to be this bass cut passive circuit on some Reverend guitars that I've seen before, which were really, useful, because sometimes you've got a little bit too much woof on the drive, and then you can just, chill it out with a little roll off on that. I've never seen it done before. In fact, I should look up a schematic and see if it's, easy to do, because it'll be a really useful thing to, have on board. Suddenly just cut the bass. In fact, like one of the most useful pedals I think would be right at the end of your chain before all your time-based stuff is to just have a low and a high filter that just cuts lows and cuts highs. And then with a parametric mid-range, you can bump or cut if you wanted to. But just that, because very often in the mix, all I'm doing is just cutting lows and highs, and getting the tracks to sit. The mid-range is fine. In fact, if you wanted the mid-range change, you should probably use another guitar in a different pickup setting or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's where the character of the guitar lives, isn't it? It's really just the EQ around it that makes it sit in the track.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
So here's the interesting bit now. When you start piling on the gain, it gets really interesting. So this is just the drive on the amp. We'll probably stick with the bridge pickup. So it's got that sparkles, and this is the neck pickup now. Just backed off the volume to around 8 or something. So it can get a little growly, and then it'll clean up. Just like you would, normally expect a Strat to do that. The in-betweens now with distortion, they don't sound as bright and sparkly to me as on a normal Strat. They sound like, almost like there's some, frequencies getting cancelled out. But it's a pretty usable sound, The middle one's nice. Middle and bridge. In fact, those in-between things, if you did want them to sparkle more, that's when that EXP or whatever, that scoopy thing, it works nicely. That sort of thing. And then finally, the bridge by itself. Mid boost on full. Mid boost all the way off. So you can actually hear that mid range into distortion going, it brings it forward.
Punching hard on it.
And I was like chasing some, the guitar sound on Coming Back to Life, for example, and I got quite close with the drive channel on the amp with the boost on, and a drybell vibe machine, and a bit of delay. Something like that, So it was, but you can hear the hiss. You can hear how noisy it gets.
Yeah, but is that just the amp hiss, or is that...
No, it's like with the volume off all the way, the active circuitry is still on because that volume
So it's
is
boosting the...
so you're
it's
kind of
boosting the
any
hiss
noise
as
that
well as...
the active pickups have. I mean, the active circuit has. It's getting amplified by the amp. On the clean channel, it's dead quiet. But the moment you have some drive on the amp, it's noise. Niagara Falls.
Which makes sense with what you were saying before about the DC rating being low and then the preamp kicking it up, right?
Yeah.
And so when the preamp's kicking it up, you're probably it's kicking up hiss as well, which is it's kind of like turning the preamp up on a mic pre.
Yeah.
It sounds good, man. It sounds really good. Like it's a great sound. I mean, I imagine you'll get a lot of use out of that, right?
I would.
It's one that yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have it on my main Strat, if you know what I mean. But it's nice having it on a backup.
On another edition. Yeah. And is that an Eric Johnson Strat?
It is, yeah.
Say? I think those were some of the best Strats ever. I think I should try it. I've been thinking about getting one of them or getting a Sir. I haven't made my mind up.
You did?
Because I don't really own a good Strat right now. I've got my Ibanez AZ, which is really like a hot rodded Strat.
Yeah.
And then I've got this, which is just a piece of crap, but it does the job, you know what I mean? But I'd like to have a good Strat.
One of the indicators of like a well-made Strat you should look at is right at the back, where this curve turns into like the normal neck profile. Just look at those curves. If it's done really well and smoothly, they've taken a bit of, care on the instrument. But if you see those sharp, jagged edges, look at the back of that one, for example. You'll probably just see like really sharp,
No, it's not too bad.
Maybe your hands have kind of...
and this almost feels like it's got an oil finish. It's not.
Satin finish, yeah.
It's like, it's really thin. They would have just used the cheapest, thinnest finish they could have, you know what I mean? So it's, it seems okay. But I don't think that's because a lot of care was given.
Yeah.
It's got a really thin fretboard too. I just noticed the fretboard's like, it's probably, I don't know, 3 millimeters?
Yeah.
It's really thin.
Yeah, that's another thing you can do, like with, especially with rosewood necks, is to like roll those edges yourself. It becomes suddenly way more comfortable.
Yeah, totally. This was already done, but with my Porritt Smith, the new one, the DGT, it was pretty hard on the edges, so I just got a screwdriver and did the old, along and rolled them all, and what a difference. Yeah. Huge difference to how it feels, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I probably will sand the back of the neck on that one at some point just to take some of the lacquer off. I don't like it too plasticky feeling,
Yeah. Though this one, like the lacquer's on pretty thick, you've got that nice old glossy kind of thing. But on the oldest one I've got, which I've played like heaps, that it's all starting to come off.
Yeah. Yeah, they will eventually overplaying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So their guitar, the Eric Johnsons, they're quarter-sawn necks, aren't they? I think that's one of the big selling points.
I think if you can see it, I'll hold it up to the camera, but the grain on that is all in one line. Yeah. There's no like weird, It also apparently causes the tension to be a little bit stiffer than normal. I don't know if that's true or whatever, but yeah, I can vouch for the fact that all 3 EJs play slightly stiffer than, like, say, the 62 reissue, for example.
But that's probably a good thing, though, right? Because the neck's more stable, I guess, that's the whole idea of quarter-sawn, isn't it?
Yeah.
More stable neck, so it's sort of less fluctuating, which is the whole idea of roasted maple, too. But I think roasted maple sounds different, you know what I mean? Once all that treatment's done to it, they sound different for sure.
Yeah.
Have you had some gigs on? You had some gigs on? You've been busy?
Gigs. Well, here's something exciting. In November, my first band is going to be opening for Extreme in Bangalore. So
wow,
yeah, that's something to look for.
Nuno Betancourt.
Yeah, man.
Holy heck!
Get to meet him. He's like been a big influence for sure. Like very melodic with all the chops in place.
I mean, his solo on "Get the Funk Out" is still one of my favorite
Yeah.
guitar solos, like
You know,
ever.
there was an album called Waiting for the Punchline that they did just like after Nirvana and everything, you know. So it's a very different sounding album for them, but it's recorded like super dry, and you can just tell it's basically just a band in a room. You know, there's no gloss on any massive production or anything like that. And like as a production standpoint, that was like a big one for me, because till then I was like everything should be processed and blown up bigger than life. And it was just like an honest band in a room, and I was like, that there's like a serious charm to that as well. So you know, if you just get your act together and practice a bit, then you don't really have to do all that gloss over stuff.
Well, Nuno's approach is quite interesting, isn't it? I don't know if you've seen the stuff, but it's some sort of Marshall type amp, and then he has the rat pedal that he just turns on, but with the drive down
All the way, yeah.
But he's sort of running through it like a preamp, as you will, and that's about to the extent of what he does, right?
And
that's
don't
kind of
forget
an
the Boss
interesting take.
GT8 in the loop.
Yeah, that's right.
Apparently they've tried to like give him all the newer stuff, and he's like, nah, I just like that old one.
And well, if it works, why mess with it, right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, but very interesting player. I mean, they were an interesting one, because I think I remember when More Than Words was a big hit.
Yeah.
Here, and a lot of people bought that album and then got it home and actually complained about it and took it back to the shop. Apparently, all the record stores across New Zealand kept getting returns of Extreme, because they had the one ballad, right, of More Than Words, but the rest of the album was like funk rock metal.
The
You know
album
what I
was
mean?
called
Like,
Pornography. What do you expect, man?
well, but it shows you that people used to buy songs because of singles,
Yeah,
right?
based on the single.
And they I saw Gary Cherone. When he came with Van Halen, he was the singer with Van
Yeah.
Halen when they played in New Zealand. He was still one of the best frontmen I've ever seen. Period.
Yeah.
Just incredible. You know, he just had all the moves and all the thing in his voice, and that'll be a good show, man. That'll be great.
Yeah.
And they've had their new material is really good too.
It is, yeah.
I think it's Rise, that tune.
Yeah.
The most recent one with that killer guitar
Guitar
thing
solo,
that
yeah.
everyone thought was fake. And Nuno's like, no, I actually played it.
If you
who
want
knows?
to hear a ridiculously good guitar solo that Nuno did, listen to the song called "Hip Today." It's almost like, you know, it's from that album, Waiting for the Punchline. But that solo, man, it's like he's unashamed. Like, yeah, hello, I can play, and listen to this. You know, otherwise, like at that point,
he's
I think a lot
ridiculous.
of people are trying to hide their chops and, you know, kind of tuck it under the carpet because it wasn't really fashionable at the time. But you know,
Like the Nirvana thing, right?
yeah.
He's that'll be a good show, man. That's awesome. And whereabouts is that?
That's in Bangalore, and then we've got
Oh.
a show in Pune the night before, so it's good. That'll be like the second night we're playing, because that band, like the singer lives in London, 2 members are in Bombay, and I'm in Auckland, so we kind of, you know, don't really play regularly, as you can imagine, but we normally just get together, have one rehearsal, and do the gig. Because
But this is a Black Strat Blues.
no,
gig,
this
or
is
it
before Black Star Blues. I used to be in a band called
Oh.
Zero in Bombay, which was, you know, I guess at that time it was like alt rock, and now it's like classic rock. So, but I mean,
Not?
I
No,
can,
now it's dad rock, right?
pretty much, yeah. But the funny thing
Right.
is, like, you know, though, like some of the songs are like heavy and some were like very poppy and stuff, it all had like catchy choruses, so that was like the, you know, the one thing people like still remember the songs. So that's one at least good thing you can hide behind is good songs.
Yeah, totally. And a catchy chorus is really what you want, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's going to rope people in.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. And what guitar are you going to take?
I will probably take the 62 reissue, because as we go older, the tunings keep dropping lower and lower. So now we're probably from
Yeah.
E flat going to D. We used to always be in E flat. So like normally like bands play in E and then you go to E flat, right? When you get older. Now from E flat you have to go to D.
You'd like to D. so that's a fixed bridge. You've got the bridge
No,
flat,
it's
not
floating. So I tried it the other day.
Oh.
I just went down a semitone. It's still floating a little bit, but not as much as it is normally. And I normally pull up like a third on the G. So now I'd probably get like just a tone at the most, you know. But the good thing is it's not flopping around too much. The 11s are still kind of, you know, have got some tension, but it's like super nice and easy now. It's like, oh shit, you know, maybe it's time to go to 9s or something. was so
It's
much
funny you
fun.
say that because I've gone down to 10s on most of my guitars at the moment. I've been using 11s for the longest of time, but
Right.
my Porridge Smith, when it arrived with 9s. I think I got it set up for 10s, so I wasn't sure what the tremolo was going to do. But I got pain in my arm for the first time ever when we did We Were Rock You,
Okay.
and it was a bit freaking scary
I'm
because
sure.
I've never had anything like that. Like I get home and my arm was aching, like in my hand and down this side here, and I was like, oh gee, like what's going on? And I figured out what it was. It was because the guy playing guitar too had tried to set up right next to me where the pit's always really tight, right? So because he was here, I kept hitting his music stand with my headstock. So I ended up having to play like this, which put my arm
At a weird
on
angle.
this angle.
Yeah.
Kind of like that, and then you do that for 3 hours and bending all the time, all that stuff, and you're bending all the time, you're doing these things, and it was just my arm was getting wrecked. So I had to say to him, hey, you're just going to have to move.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had to be up front because that's where the MD wanted me because I had all the solos and stuff. So he was really cool. Like he just moved back a little bit, and then the next night we got through the gig and there was no pain at all. And I was like, oh gee. But it did make me think that I'm going to be 46 soon. Maybe it's time to just settle on 10s and just like why work harder than I have to. And this has got 10s on it and
That's
seems fine.
It's one gig you can actually get away with light gauge strings because I guess Brian May is using 8s or something, right?
Yeah, I don't think it matters though. I mean, it's interesting, but like, I used to think it was a thing, but I remember seeing a thing of John Schofield, and he went from 13s to 11s, and I didn't hear a difference in his tone at all, like not even remotely different. So I kind of went, oh, maybe it just doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't notice a difference in my tone. I noticed a difference in the feel of the instrument. I had to be a little careful. And I actually did break a string when I was at home. I kind of went bang, and I hit it hard as like I normally would. And I went ping, there goes a string,
Yeah.
But I think I'm just going to go with it now. I run 10s for a while and just see what happens.
I told you I started off playing 8s, right? And then, I found Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then obviously now like you need the heavy duty ones, and I went to 11s. So Doyle Bramall, he told me this hilarious story once. I mean, sorry to name drop and everything, but apparently Stevie, like towards his latter days, he was using 11s, and Doyle's like,
Yeah.
what happened to the 13s? You used to use 13s, and now you're using 11s. He said, stop doing cocaine, man.
Yeah, he didn't feel any pain when he was high.
Yeah.
Right, but it's but I mean 13's detuned is different, right? Josh Smith, do you know Josh Smith,
I do,
the
yeah.
blues guitar player? He's Joe Bonamaster's guitar
Yeah,
player.
he uses 13s.
He uses 13s. And I played a couple of his tallies, and they're unplayable. I kid you not. I got them, and I'm like, how the hell do you play this? Like I was like, this is my bend.
Yeah.
And I'm like giving it my all. My arm was aching. I was like, how do you like even play like 13s at regular pitch?
Yeah.
It's just a bit silly. It doesn't. I mean, he could go down to 12s. Nobody would hear the tonal difference.
He
feel,
would,
but
though, I guess.
he's just used to it.
Yeah.
So
I think it's
yeah.
also your hands expecting a certain amount of tension, and when that changes, then you kind of have to, make some changes to your technique as well. So
Yeah,
you gotta
totally.
lighten up on the right hand a little bit. I've been really enjoying going lighter than a 1mm, because normally I never go lighter than a 1mm for electric guitar. And like this Tortex .88 and then these Max Grip .88s are really nice. I kind of can dig in a little bit more, and that kind of adds a little bit of compression as well. I don't know. I guess that's one way of putting it, but it doesn't react as immediately as like a Fender Heavy or something, something like that, which is like it's like a Nazi. It will not let the string do anything other than what you want it to do. But here with a little bit of rebound, even like the rhythm guitar playing loves it.
Oh yeah. Lighter picks for rhythm guitar without a doubt.
Yeah,
it's funny. Mike Stern, when we did that tour with him, he used Fender light picks, the thinnest, flimsiest ones. And I remember I was like, "Can I have one of your picks and just try it?" And I tried one of his, and for the rhythm guitar, that sort of thing. Really good. But then I was like, soloing, it's all gone to custard. But it's funny, I've actually gone the opposite way. For the longest time, I've been using these, which are my picks I had made. And these are basically Dunlop 1.14 millimeters.
Yep.
And then on the show, the guy, Tom, who was playing guitar too, he's been using Dunlop Jazz 3 XLs. And I said, just pass me one of those and I'll give it a go. And I stupidly played it on the gig that night. I shouldn't have. I was in the middle of the gig and I swapped picks and I probably shouldn't have. And I was like, everything feels better. I can't explain it, but like everything was kind of connecting at the right times. Everything felt better. My tone sounded pretty similar, if not the same.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, why don't I just go back to Jazz 3? So I did. I was kind of going back to Jazz 3 XLs and with no issue.
The XLs
and I
are
thought
okay.
the rhythm,
I think those really, the normal Jazz 3s, man, I keep dropping them. I can barely even hold them.
too small. Yeah, too small.
You know,
but I thought the rhythm guitar thing would be affected the most, right? I thought like this sort of thing. That's the Jazz 3. This is the normal. I can't really tell the difference.
Yeah.
They so it sounds close, similar enough.
I think your hands know what to do, like subconsciously. They can adjust. Along with the pick guard, they sent some picks, and one of them was this. My daughter was like, "Dad, what the hell is this?" I was like, "It's a pick." I was like, "How do you even play it?" And she was like trying to hold it. I was like, "Man, you can do all that kind of stuff."
Doesn't Santana use a triangle pick or something?
Yeah, calls it the tortilla
crazy,
chip.
The tortilla chip. The tortilla pick.
Yeah.
Interesting, eh? Like have you ever tried any like foreign materials like wood or
I've tried a wooden pick.
you have? Did you like it?
No.
No, neither did I. I didn't, and I wanted to, but I was like, nah. And then I had this guy Vinny make me a whole lot of picks. Or he sent V picks. Have you ever tried those?
I've heard of them. I haven't tried them.
He sent me about 100 of them when I was in England, of all different varieties, and some of them are really interesting. They all sound slightly different, but it was funny. He sent them to my because we were traveling around at the time, and he sent them to my friend. I wonder if I got them handy. No, I don't. He sent them to my friend Simon King because I was like, send them to Simon's house, and we'll be there in about a week. And so Simon opened it and rated all the best ones for himself. So I don't actually know what I was left with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he very kindly sent me a whole stash of them because he used to watch, that guy Vinny used to watch a lot of my YouTube videos.
Right.
So it was his way of saying thanks and supporting. So that was really cool.
Yeah. Apparently, I've seen some picks that almost like have a stylus at the end of the pick. It's like a diamond-shaped thing at the end. I don't know if you've ever seen those. It looked stupid, like weird to me. These are still like one of my faves, the nylon 1.07. Apparently, Landa was using them for a while. So my friend went to the baked potato. He got a couple. He's like, "Oh, these are what Landa was using." So we both went and bought a bag of 72 of these picks. I still have got like heaps lying over here. So if you ever want to, try these, I'll send a couple over. But apparently, this end of the pick is very popular with guys like Landa. I think Stevie Ray Vaughan did the same thing as well. So rather than like it fattens it up. I mean, actually, maybe just try the difference. Like the low end gets a little thicker.
On the round, are you using the rounded edge?
The rounded edge, yeah. Apparently, and Guthrie Trapp and Tom Bukovac, they were saying that it helps them pick faster if they there's less resistance when you do that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I took a lesson with this guy Jake Wilson in London, like end of last year, and we just talked about technique. And he uses those 0.77 mil picks, but he uses the flow ones, which are the ones with the sharp point on it. So thin pick, but pointy. And burning chops, like play ridiculously fast, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think it's horses for courses, isn't it? But there's definitely some advantage to trying different things, isn't there? Try the side of the pick and see what happens, you know?
Totally. I mean, I've noticed that I do it subconsciously sometimes. You know, like in the middle of a solo, I'll just want like especially if I'm going higher up the neck and I just want to thicken it out a bit. I've noticed like my middle finger will just do that, and you know, I'll notice, oh, I'm playing with that hand. I didn't even realize I did it.
I do the same thing, and sometimes I change my angle of my pick. Instead of being like pretty square on the string, I'll turn it round to slide it over the string a little more to get different sounds, and I don't even realize I'm doing it half the time. And it's one of the side effects of doing all these YouTube videos this year is that I'm learning things about my playing I had no idea were even a thing, because I'm seeing myself play lots of different music every day. Do you know what I mean? And so
soon you'll be putting a camera over there and, you know, filming.
Yeah, Troy Grady, right? Is that his name, the guy? Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's like there's a lot to be said for that, though, too. You know, I take the camera I'm using at the moment is my GoPro as a webcam, but I take it to all the gigs and actually film, and I've learned so much about my playing by just watching back and seeing what I do, because your perspective at the time can't be trusted.
Yeah.
You know, at the time I think, oh man, I played really terrible on that song or whatever, and then watch it back and I'm like, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's way better than I thought it was, and so because your perspective at the time is very inward.
Yeah.
It's just what you're experiencing. So when you're looking at it from an outsider's point of view, everything changes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of, yeah.
But at least you're being pleasantly surprised. Sometimes you think you've had a good gig and you watch the footage back and you're like, shit, that was at all.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it goes that way too, that's for sure.
It sends you straight back to the shed, and, you know, at least it at least motivates me to, you know, put in the work.
Yeah, totally. It's a positive thing, though, as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's so much to be learnt from doing that. And so I always make a point of trying to record all of them. And I really wanted to record some of We Will Rock You to sort of, you know, particularly the Bohemian Rhapsody solo
for sure.
and the, because, you know, actually I'm out on stage doing that whole thing and I wanted to see what I looked like and all that. But, no.
You know, the funny thing about the Bohemian Rhapsody guitar solo is, like, you think, like, by itself that is an epic guitar solo tone. But by itself, it's like super small and scratchy. And what makes it epic, if you listen to other rhythm guitars behind it, when it goes down, you know, the parts that complement it, those are like big and fat and full. And it gives the illusion that younger brothers also got the the cojones of the big brothers. So it's
Totally.
Yeah.
And therein lies the issue when you try and sound like Brian May, right? Like I remember some guy once saying to me, "Oh, you said nothing like Brian May," and I was like, "Good," because if I was to do that exact tone without the supporting instruments in the way they're supposed to be, you know, say the guy playing rhythm guitar had a really bright sound too. Now you've just got two bright sounds.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. It's real mid-rangey and real kind of, and quite dry too. Some of his just guitar sounds are really dry, which is hard to play, and it doesn't necessarily work. You know, it's interesting. The director came up to me before the first show and he said, "Have you got a rig guitar?" And I was like, "Nope, I don't have one." And I was like, "I'm not going down that road." And I said, he goes, "Oh, it'd be really cool if you had one of those Brian May guitars." And I was like, "Yeah, but they're crap." And he goes, I know. I've heard from lots of people they just don't play very well and they don't stay in tune." And I'm like, exactly. It's not a good instrument. You know, Brian's own personal instrument is different, but it doesn't matter. I mean, I wasn't trying to be Brian May. So, and the Paurie Smith worked perfectly for it. It was like, in the weekend, the MD let us go into the theatre, and the sound guy actually played the multi-tracks to us, back to us.
Yep.
Because every night they record multi-track the entire show, and then the sound guy can mix the band the following day and make changes, and he can play all those tracks back through the desk.
Right.
And it's as if we're there playing it. So right at the end of the season, they didn't want to do it too early because they didn't want us to change anything. They thought if we hear it, we might go, you know. But we got to hear the whole show back through the system, and it sounded freaking huge.
That's
like
cool.
It was really big sounding, and lots of guitars in the mix, which was surprising because usually musical theatre means lots of drums and lots of vocals and not much else.
They're not guitarist friendly.
No, they don't know what to do. But in this case, because Queen, they had no choice, right? Yeah. And it was really good to hear it. And it sounded, because the thing was in my in-ears, it sounded like complete ass. It was horrible. Because I was on a wireless pack. I had a wireless pack here for my in-ears, and I had a wireless pack here for my guitar. Because I had to go down to the front of the stage and do those solos, right? And those wireless packs, they always compress the hell out of it. So what I'm hearing was like, almost sounded like fuzz the way it was compressing, you know what I mean? But I had to trust that it was going out good out front of house, you know what I mean? And
you've seen the Brian May rig rundown, right? So the interesting thing is he's got a treble booster on his strap before the wireless. So, at least you have all that turning down the volume, that works as expected.
Well, he was saying that it doesn't work to have it on the other end of the wireless. It's got to be straight at the point of the guitar, and I guess that's to do with the controls. How they're responding to it. And
totally. So I mean, if you were using like a treble booster, that's like the one place you'd want to put it. But like
no, I didn't go treble booster, and I just did basically my normal setup, which is a Fender type amp. We couldn't have amps on stage, unfortunately, so it had to be modelers and Fender type amp with a BB preamp in front of it, and that was my standard, and it's worked good.
I have an unproven theory that like if you want guitars to sound good on in-ears, get the shittest possible earbuds, and it'll sound fine.
Well, these aren't flash ones; they're just Shure 215s, which are kind of a couple of $100. They're not expensive.
Nice.
They're at the lower end of middle to low end, but
and I never really liked guitar on them. I went to the 425s. I found like it became even like worse because it became very hi-fi sounding. And then I found these Marshall branded, very cheap earbuds, which are like just, phone listening kind of a thing. And I've never been happier. So every time like I have a gig where I need to be on in-ears, I make sure I take two of those sets with me.
Yeah, interesting. But the thing with this though is it wasn't the ears that were the problem; it was the wireless pack.
Oh, yeah.
Because it had to be, because they had a giant big screen in front of us that came down with all the LEDs and all that. It was like really interfering with the wireless pack. So they had to have the wireless pack down the other end so that when I'm on stage, it's not having to go through a screen. But of course, it's down there. But of course, what those wireless packs, the Sennheisers, they always compress,
They do, yeah.
Because I tried plugging headphones straight to the wireless pack to see if it was better, and it was just as bad as the.
Here's another thing that I found with those Sennheiser packs is you defeat the limiter that most of the guys put on by default. Defeat the limiter. Crank up your volume to around like 8 or 9 and ask him to drop the monitor level send from the console. And you get a little more headroom in that case.
Yeah, we ran it at 3/4 on the volume control and then turn the level down going to it. And so it was like more of the preamp in the pack than actually the signal being sent. Yeah, and that did improve things, but it was still...
I can imagine with both your guitar going wireless and the monitoring being, there's like two wireless, that companding circuit or whatever they call it. And it's just like, it turns to shit by the time it comes back to you.
Yeah, and you've got, two packs. One's a receiver, one's a transmitter. And shouldn't really be near each other. But I was talking to the bass player about that because he does a lot of sound gigs. And he was saying, even people like Taylor Swift, when she plays acoustic guitar, she's got two packs on a strap, one for her ears and doesn't seem to have the same problems. There must be, maybe it's just high-end... higher.
Well, yeah, for sure, man. Those Shure guitar wireless things, they cost a bomb, but apparently, like, that's the only way to do it if you're going to do it or something like that. So
Steve Vai's guitar tech told me that he because he had to chase a cable around with Steve when they bring 100-foot cable and he had to chase it around all night and hook it from his pedals and what have you. And I said to the guy, Todd, I think his name is or something. I said, why don't you just go wireless? And he goes, believe me, I tried. Yeah. He goes, we bought a $12,000 wireless system in for Steve. Yeah. And Steve Vai could still hear the difference, and he wasn't happy. And I asked Steve, I said, like, why don't you go wireless? And he goes, I can hear the difference. He goes, but also it's like people are coming to hear a guitar show, right? He goes, so if the guitar goes down because of the wireless system, or the whole thing sucks. Whereas a cable is the chances of it going down and killing the show are minimal.
And
And I thought that's a good point.
at the other end of the spectrum, you have a guy like Angus Young. Like when they went to record Back in Black, apparently he was like, "Oh, it doesn't sound like it sounds live," and like the only thing difference is you're not using a wireless right now. So I think Matt Lang said, "Why don't you just use the wireless in the studio?" And that apparently was like such a a big part of that guitar sound is now they made it like that. I think what's it called? The something Schaefer Vega or something. It's like a big little tower box. You've never seen that? They've put the whole bloody wireless circuitry into a box.
So that
So
it has a certain type of roll off.
So if you're like chasing the Angus Young guitar sound, then that's what you apparently need.
No, it's interesting. I noticed the wireless system, even with the gain up on full from the transmitter to the pack,
Right.
to the rack unit, was cutting off some volume in because my Fractal has LED meters. There's three green and then one red, and when you hit the red, you just want it to be tickling the red.
Right.
Well, once I went through the wireless pack, even with it up full, it wasn't even tickling the red where it normally would be. So,
Right.
kind of interesting.
Yeah. You know what you should do? I think you should do a gig on EMGs, and then that'll make it even worse, and then you'll be like, okay, now it sounds better than that.
Yeah, well, it's not. It's interesting because most of the shows I've done, that's not normally a problem, right? Because I'd normally be running in-ears or headphones. I actually prefer to wear headphones.
Right.
They're more comfortable. They sound better. You know what I mean? And if I don't have to move, then I'll just I'll have a. They usually have these headphone amps next to us here, and I'll just run headphones.
Yeah.
And then I come out of my Fractal and I go straight into the headphone thing as well, and then I can have my own guitar level to balance with everything else without having to ask someone, because I might want to change it during the performance and stuff, so that's what I'll do. So it's not normally a problem, but this show I had to go out the front, so it was that kind of compounded it all.
Right.
Yeah, was what it was.
Yeah. Does your FM9 have a AES or SPDIF output?
No, they don't.
Because
but I did end up using the FM3 on that gig because I wanted the FM9 at home.
Right.
And I actually used pedals. I used I used the FM9 and I had FM3, and I had it set up for 8 scenes, clean with delay, clean with chorus, clean with boost, so that I could just kick up for solos, and then an AC30. All the first ones were Fender, then an AC30, then an AC30 pushed, and then a massive big delay echoey thing, and those were the sounds that I used. And then I ran 5 pedals into it. So I had a Dude pedal, I had an OCD, those were my main 2 drives, and then I had a Cusack Screamer, which I just used for the crazy little thing called Love Solo.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it to thin the sound out, and then I coil tapped the Poor Ed Smith, and that got me in the ballpark of like a telly sound, you know what I mean?
That was apparently one of the...
worked really well.
Yeah, that was one of the only times Brian May's not used the Red Special. He was forced to use a telly and a Mesa Boogie by the engineer. And he was like, at first I protested, and I was like, nope, I'm not going to do it. And finally he sweet talked me into doing it. And then when I heard the resultant tone, I was like, okay, cool, that works with the song.
Yeah, totally it does. So that's what I did with that. And then I had a wah-wah, which I could have set up an expression pedal to do, but I was like, I've got a wah-wah, I'll just bring it. And then I put an OC2 in there, and I thought the octave pedal, just as in case, but I actually used it quite a bit. There was a moment where the Killer Queen comes out, and they said, we want you to play the heaviest thing you can possibly do. And the guitar part went, oh, it's not going to be very drivey with this. I'll show you. But with the octave pedal, it sounded huge, you know what I mean? So
it sounds a little bit like that thing that starts Death on 2 Legs. I don't know if you're something like that. It's I don't know if I can find it, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, but so I ended up using the octave pedal quite a bit, and that was one that I mean, again, I could have done it in the Fractal, but it was just there's something convenient about having pedals. So I had 5 pedals there for it, so that kind of worked quite well.
I just thought I'd show you this book that I just finished reading. It's quite hilarious, actually. It's by the head of Trident Studios at the time, this guy called Norman Sheffield. And they were also Queen's management company. So there was some
Life on. Oh.
yeah, Life on Two Legs. Apparently, Freddie wrote that song "Death on Two Legs" about this guy, which was like a straight on like bullet between the eyes kind of a put down kind of a thing. So it was like, when they first formed and they did their first live performance, like they was so like they had no idea like how to conduct themselves and stuff like that. And then they became like one of the biggest, the best live band or whatever of all time. If you look at the Wembley performance as proof.
Yeah.
And apparently, like Freddie was like a bit of a diva back in those days as well. So he had like hilarious stories of all he wanted money for was to buy clothes. And these guys were like, we need to spend the money on the recording studio time and the stuff that the band needs, all your gear. And it was like, no, I want money for clothes.
Oh, he was definitely a drama queen from what I understand.
Yeah.
So, and fair enough, I mean, he was great, and he can get away with it.
Freddie used to apparently live in Bombay, like when he was a little lad. He was apparently born in Zanzibar, and his parents were Parsi, which is this community that originated from Iran, and then fleeing religious persecution, they landed up in India. In a small town in Gujarat, and they've been in India for like years and years, and like centuries actually at this point. So there are very few of them left, and I've like the bass player in Black Star Blues is a Parsi. So if you speak to every second Parsi family in Bombay, they have some connection to Freddie. They're very proud of him. They call him Afro Freddie, which is like our Freddie. But you'll find these stories. And now he used to play, over here, and this guy was his childhood friend, and that area where he grew up apparently was not too far from my house. It was just on the side of the railway bridge. So spend some time in that area, and like you can, it's kind of funny, that he lived there and then he became like this huge ass rock star in England.
Well, thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah,
and listening, and you're all super cool.
And we will see you again sometime soon. See you guys.